So the King, we now know, well, we believe he's going to be staying at Sandringham for a long period of time. He might see the Prime Minister face to face on the 21st. He's going to rest and recuperate there, but become an outpatient at a London hospital if and when he does actually come back. What will the King be doing, do we think? Because there's no engagements, which is good. You know, we often look at the royal family and we judge them by what we see in public, whether they are attending engagements or functions or charities. But he has a massive constitutional role as the head of state. Can he, you know, he reads the red boxes. We live in a time of political and kind of world turmoil. How will he be dealing with that role of being a king? Yeah, I mean, I think
a lot's been said about it. I mean, the only thing about the role of the monarch is that is the only role that matters in a constitutional monarchy, parliamentary democracy. The Queen, late Queen, you know, she was struggling with her eyesight towards the end. She would have taken her a long time to get through her red box. The King, even in this state, will get through his red boxes before he's had his boiled egg in the morning. You know, he's a voracious reader, and he'll be reading an awful lot. And so, not only his red boxes, he hasn't really had time to relax. I mean, he hasn't been able to paint really. Watercolourist, he's a brilliant watercolourist. He hasn't had a chance to do that. I remember speaking to him at Dumfries House, and he said, "Oh, I just don't get the time." Now, what they will try to stop him doing is having the contact with his foundation, all the charity work he does. And I think that needs to be pushed back for other people to involve themselves with. And he should just focus on his constitutional affairs. Other than that, a bit of painting, maybe listening to Leonard Cohen, just relaxing. I would have thought that he'll stay at Sandringham House until they sort of shut it down. And then he may go to Wood Farm, because remember when the Queen was, late Queen was very sick, she went to Wood Farm. It's where Prince Philip lived as well most of the time. It's a very relaxing place, and he can be there with just a couple of servants and just really chill out.
There's a chapter in your book which you very kindly brought us in.
I did, yeah. Yeah, there it is.
There's a really good chapter in the book which I have enjoyed, and it talks about the period of history when Britain went to war in Iraq, and that the Queen was speaking to Tony Blair and taking briefings, because what people don't know is that, you know, once a week, or the monarch has such great access to the Prime Minister to know actually what's going on, and gets told, you know, about world affairs. And
well, the other way around, as she would say, he has access to the Queen.
He has access to the Queen, yeah. And but they get you know, they know what's happening, what the Parliament are actually doing. And I think in that chapter you mentioned that maybe Charles, if he was king then, he may have delve deeper into what happened in Iraq. We've got, you know, massive world affairs at the moment. If he is ill, if he is unable to, you know, really kind of do this constitutional role, do you think he will have to, you know, really struggle to carry out this role when he's ill up at Sandringham?
Look, we don't know how the treatment's going to go, but one thing I would say, absolutely, I don't think there'll ever be an abdication, and I know I've heard people talking about that, and, you know, pundits. It's a no-no. There's no need to. We have a statute for a regency, so we don't need anybody to abdicate. Number two is I don't think it's going to come to that, because if you look at how frail the Queen was, the late Queen was, towards the end of her life, probably all the way through her 90s actually, the King, the current King, was there for her, supporting her. And when, you know, he went to Cheltenham, he went to all of these things. So there's no issue there. I think that William would have to step up. He hasn't. People said he's stepping up now. He hasn't. I mean, you've got to remember that the only thing he's done so far is an investiture. When he was doing the investitures, along with Princess Anne and the then Prince of Wales, for the Queen towards the end. So nothing has changed. As for the bilaterals, we saw the King in UAE. You were the only two reporters there, and he was on, you know, great form. He was, what was going on behind the scenes were very important bilaterals to do with what was going on in the Israel and all the situation that was going on there. So it's an area that he will continue to do. Will he continue to take phone calls from prime ministers around the world? I think he will. I think he will, whilst he can. And if he can't, then that's when William would step in. But I see that side of it as not being an issue. He will not see him doing is the public face-to-face duties. And where that's the case, we might see William step in, say, for doing receiving the credentials of a new ambassador or something like that. I can see that happening. But as for the King giving up his position constitutionally, I just don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't think there's a need for that to happen.
It's interesting you say Dubai. We also saw when we went to Kenya, and that was grueling, France, state visit, and Germany. We know that, Camilla has told him to slow down because he was, he's taken on all these extra constitutional roles.
And I mean, at the time, actually, you look at it now, and at the time, there's all these other people saying, "Oh no, it's just not true." It was absolutely bang on. And slow down is what she was saying. Listen to your body. And that stage, she had no idea he had developed cancer. So, I mean, what is interesting, I think, with what's going to have to happen in the future, and let's all pray that it happens, the king makes a full recovery, he's still going to have to slow down. He's still going to have to the people around him are going to have less expectations in terms of the way that his schedule is drawn.
Do we have too high expectations?
Yes, I think the media does, I think everyone does. And I think that even if you look at people like William and Kate, they don't do as many jobs as the king. The two people that do are the king and Princess Royal, who looks frankly like sprightly as anything, Princess Royal. But the fact is, I do think they're going to have to focus on his constitutional role. And look, he does so many other things. I just think he's probably going to have to realise, in November he's 76 years old. He's very fit, 76-year-old. He eats well and all these things. But he's had this scare. Let's hope he gets through it. And I'm sure he will. But you can't come back at the same pace. And that means things like a trip to Canada, Chogam itself in Samoa, a trip to Australia. Well, that's a very grueling trip. We've been on these, and we're just doing the press side of it. We could go and have a beer in the evening, just about. He's really relentless. When we leave those receptions or those dinners, you think, oh, good, I can go and have a relax. They're still there. You're still on parade, and I think that people don't really understand the level of the intensity of what they're doing, particularly the King and Queen in their mid-70s.
Yeah, well, they get judged by the number. There's often a timetable for who's done the most engagements. Yeah. But that's just what we see. That's just the public aspect. But there's so much more, as you're pointing out there.
Well, the thing about him is he is somebody that delves right into it. I think that William is slightly different. He's more of a delegator. And maybe that's the same way that the Queen was, actually. And in a way, that's probably what the king will have to be more of, a delegator, and leave it to other people to make these decisions, whereas he tends to be right on top of everything.
So I think we kind of want him to just relax at Sandringham.
We just want him to be healthy and to focus on his health, maybe doing a bit of painting, get people off his case. People keep coming in and asking questions, putting another thing on his plate. This is probably why it'd be quite good, as I wrote the other day. I think that it would be good if William and Harry, that were not making the latter stages of his life a misery, which is what he said they were doing. And really, between them, they're not boys anymore. They're both men, and it's time to grow up.
So William and Harry don't talk at all. How much do you think the King or William would they want Harry to step into some of the roles, or to
no, I don't think that'll ever happen. I heard that speculated the other day. Harry's gone. He's made his bed. He's going to lie in it, and that's it. But what I think could happen is what William did before, when they had that walkabout around the time of after the Queen's death. There was a truce, wasn't there? They had the four walking along. Don't have to do that. They don't have to be so graphic, because I think Kate said at the time it was the hardest thing she ever had to do. But I think what they've got to do is two brothers have to bury the hatchet and say, okay, we'll agree to disagree. Let's agree not just talking about each other anymore, and let's just try to build a relationship for the sake of the king. Because ultimately they are men, they're not boys.